days. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denicia. Let's go, go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say,
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. You know, when you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have to get your morning started, and I'm going to ask those questions that you want asked. Now, we're going to start off this morning briefly with your news in 90 seconds, guys. And so on news this morning, an 8-year-old student at the Lambeau Anglican Primary School is a national chess champion. Nicholas McCletchy won the national primary school chess competition against 117 competitors at the Presentation College in San Fernando over the weekend. He was the lone participant from Tobago, and McCletchy won all 7 games he participated in to secure the primary school crown. Additionally, opposition leader Kamala Prasad-Bissessar demanded an apology from Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley for his statements on race and crime. On Saturday, Rowley slammed Prasad-Bissessar and a pundit for insinuating that criminals were attacking people of East Indian descent. Rowley stated that the population did not need such a racial divide to be created by leaders. However, in an immediate release, the opposition leader stated that I have never in my life accused one race of committing criminal attacks against another. Race in this country. Not lately, not now, and not ever. She labeled Rowley's statements as irresponsible, dangerous, and downright nasty politics. Prasad-Bissessar threatened to launch a defamation lawsuit against Rowley if he did not apologize and retract his statement. And finally, court fees and maintenance fees can now be paid at NLCB lotto booths across the country. The judiciary made the announcement yesterday, stating that the new payment options should alleviate the system's recent delays. The court payment maintenance voucher offers customers a cash payment option for court-ordered maintenance fees and fines. The judiciary said it creates another way to pay, and people can either pay online using their credit card or chip-enabled debit card, or buy a court-pay fines and fees voucher at any NLCB lotto booth. Then use it to pay online via the court pay portal. And that was your news in 90 seconds. Guys, this morning, as we come out of that Easter season, as we are now in the month of May, we came out of a lot of activities happening on the island of Tobago. We had that Easter crowd, and then we settled into that smooth jazz season. And if you guys remember clearly, I had a chat a little bit earlier, some weeks ago, with the woman herself, a woman that is really an ambassador for Tobago's tourism, a woman who sits on the board here in Tobago for the Tobago Tourism Agency, and she is the boss, the head honcho in charge. This morning we have the ability to sit and chat with Mrs. Alicia Edwards, and it's always a pleasure to sit and chat with you. It's always very humble, but you know, we always look up to the great work that you are doing and continue to do in this sector. Now, I promised our audience in our last conversation that you would come back after jazz and talk about how that jazz festival had impacted the Tobago's economy, especially where tourism is concerned. You can give us a little bit of an overview of that, and then we get into the conversation a bit.
Okay, so good morning to the viewers on Tobago Updates. The jazz ended last week, and the TTAL is in the midst of finalizing our jazz survey. Our jazz survey started with the actual surveys during the jazz events, but it continued with some exit surveys that are just being wrapped up. So as it stands now, I do not have any data, and you know I like to talk about data. I don't have any data on what the Jazz Festival has done for the economy, but I know that for every event that comes on the island, there is an opportunity for stakeholders to make money, because people that visit need a place to stay, they need transport, they need food, they buy services, and all of that. And so every activity on Tobago is an opportunity for stakeholders to make money. And so for that, the agency remains grateful.
Right, and when we talk about some of the efforts that have been made, I know the Tobago Festivals was really instrumental in really taking charge and overseeing the festival. But from where you sit, do you think we're improving in our festival offering where our tourism product is concerned?
As a impartial observer and somebody who likes to move around and participate in events, I think that the organization and the execution of the various jazz events was excellent this year. I think that the team would have done their homework and that the service providers and the suppliers that would have worked with them would have been of a good standard. There were no difficulties for me, and I think for a lot of people in terms of the logistics, the flow, the traffic, and all of those things. The quality of the artists, the song system, and all of those things were wonderful. And it was good to see that Tobago vendors, food and craft and other vendors had an opportunity to make money. The thing about it is that everything in life is really a work in progress. And so even as the Tobago Jazz will move to improve every single activity it does time after time again, it's important that we honor the contributions that have happened. It was the first jazz in 2 years. There were a lot of difficulties, I think, behind the scenes. And I think that they did the best that they could have done, given all the extenuating circumstances.
Excellent. And I know that you said that you haven't gotten the data and you like to speak from a place of data, but are there any pre-assessments that you can make in regards to tourist arrivals on the island, in any increase, any comparisons compared to years before, and if it was like mostly domestic tourism, or we're not in a position to answer those questions?
I wouldn't want to say at this point in time because it's important for us not to. I saw a lot of people who were not Tobagonians there, but just to quantify it and say whether there was an increase from previous years, because I know for sure that the agency was not in the habit of collecting jazz data beforehand. And so it would be impossible and very irresponsible of me just to pull things out from a hat. And I would prefer to wait until it happens. And what is happening now at the agency is that we are moving to be able to publish a lot of our information online. And so within a couple of months, persons would be able to access all of that information straight from our website.
Excellent. And let's talk a bit about some of the new developments that are happening on the tourism front here on the island of Tobago. What are some of the latest projects that you guys have been working on, and where are we headed in that regard?
So we would have had over the last few weeks as a board a couple of meetings to set our strategic imperatives for the next year. And one of the crucial things that we have agreed is necessary is that we need to start the strategic planning exercise for 2024 into 2026. And what we plan to do differently is that rather than make it agency focused as it has been in the past, we want to make it more destination focused. So we want to come up with a shared vision for the destination along with our stakeholders. We want to come up with a shared work plan to buy in some support from our stakeholders and general members of the public, because we think that it's important for everybody to put their hands on deck. The work of the agency is really just support, and there is a lot of work on the ground, not just actual physical work, but emotional work, social work, connection work, relationship work. And we think that by starting the new planning period, hand in hand with the persons who will be benefiting and cooperating with us at the agency, it would be a good way to make some of the changes that we want to see happen. On the marketing front, the activities continue in the various markets. I know that people were very excited about the Condor flight. And for the agency, it was a big thing for a number of reasons. What has happened is that in recent times, airlines like Condor have had their own share of challenges. People may not know that just around the pandemic time, Condor was purchased by a German conglomerate and made part of the stable of brands under that arrangement. They went through a rebranding exercise. They have had to change all of their planes from the the Boeing planes to the Airbus planes, and they have had a lot of internal shifts and moves and pivots. So when we were able to secure the airlift, this was as a result of a long set of negotiations and back and forth, because their ability to show profit and profitability and healthy margins on all routes has become a more critical factor than any traditional relationship with Tobago. So somebody saying that Condor used to fly here before, the old Condor used to fly under different arrangements. But given that Condor itself and their imperatives and their objectives have changed, destinations now have to make a business case at every level. And so we are heartened by the endorsement from Condor, the fact that Tobago is still a strong enough long-haul market for them to fly. And so beyond the winter, we have already started talking about continuing the service as far as we could afford as a year-round basis, maybe in conjunction with another island. But we quietly continue to do the work that we have to do there. Just yesterday, we were able to bring together our overseas reps with people from Caribbean Airline, because Caribbean Airline continues to be the bugbear. Tobago, Trinidad and Jamaica are the only two islands that do not pay for airlift in the region. And because our budget at the agency is limited, it is impossible for the agency to actually pay for all the airlift that we need. And so we are very much focused this year on asking CAL or cooperating with CAL to see if that hub between Trinidad and Tobago could be an opportunity for us to bridge some of the issues that we have with bringing people to the destination. So those conversations are ongoing.
And do those conversations include extending the amount of flights that we have coming on the island?
Yes, that's critical, because the thing about it is, and why the conversations with our reps have become important, is that some of the connecting flights into the destination, for example, flights that may be coming out, KLM flights and other flights where people could connect if we had a later connection. CAL's last flight leaves Trinidad at 8:40, but for those of us who move around, it starts the board at 7:35, 7:40. And so if you are caught up in customs, or if there is a delay with your baggage from an international flight, you cannot make it over. So a lot of the discussions are in terms of interline agreements, seamless flow of baggage, later flights online. But again, everything is negotiated. CAL was very clear about the limitations that they have in terms of planes and pilots and some of the other things that all airline partners are having at this point in time. But we are having the conversation, and I want to speak specifically to those stakeholders who have been reaching out to the agency and letting us know about their concerns and their frustrations. And I want you to know that those concerns and frustrations are shared by us, but we are doing the best that we can with the resources that we have.
Question, and I think I speak for a lot of Tobagonians here when I say, how is it that we have so many challenges with CAL and the ability to extend these flights now as opposed to pre-COVID? Was COVID the answer to them being able to cut a number of flights to Tobago because it economically wasn't making enough sense for them? Because, I mean, previously, before the pandemic, we had flights going up to 1 a.m. So, I mean, are these questions being asked? What are the internal issues that are causing us now, post-pandemic, to not be able to function at the pre-pandemic level in relation to the flights going between the two islands?
So at the lowest level, CAL is having the same business case struggles that most airlines are having. The fact that it must make economic sense to fly. It must make, you must be able to pay your pilots, you must have spare flights, and depending on what routes are more profitable, planes are pulled without emotion from one route to the other. The difficulty with the domestic route is that the domestic route is now being calculated as a cost and profit center, whereas it should not be, because it's an essential service for Tobago people. And so so the subvention or that is given, or the subsidy that is given to CAL to run the domestic route, is never sufficient to cover even the regular movement of people. The other limiting factor as well is that the opening of the airport is a conglomeration among the civil aviation people, airport authority, immigration, and a whole host of entities. And those entities do not fall under the Ministry of Tourism. CAL does not report to the Minister of Tourism. So there are a whole lot of things that happen in places beyond the THE and at the level of the highest offices in the land that impact what we can do. And so until and unless those entities are ready to really give Tobago tourism the leeway that it needs to do the things that it has to do, we will always be in a very difficult position. I pulled up an advertisement for BWE from 1974 yesterday, and BWE was flying the same routes then that they're flying now. And so in terms of expansion or growth in the airline, because BWE is CAL, is whoever, there has not been that that kind of arrangement. And I think that now, in the very competitive times in which we sit, the airline has to become more hard and fast about profit and cost and business cases. And Tobago currently, as it sits, is not a profit center for the airline.
Understood. Let's chat a little bit about the strategic direction for tourism on the island of Tobago now. We know last year in 2022, the Division of Tourism sent out a request for proposals for tenders to be submitted for the strategic plan for Tobago's tourism and the direction for tourism on the island. Do you know anything about the current status of that, and how does that feed into the work that you guys are doing at the agency?
I know that within the division, because remember, the division is really the overarching tourism body for the island. I know that process is ongoing and it has not been completed, but the agency has to continue functioning in the midst of all of that. There is a national tourism policy that has not really been adopted by either the government. A lot of things happen in draft, but in the interim, what the agency intends to do is to work with the shared vision of Tobago stakeholders. The things that we want for tourism really must be those things that renound to the benefit of the citizens. So I wouldn't really count it in terms of skyscrapers or 5-star hotel or anything like that. I would count it in the ability of people on the island who have invested in tourism plant and equipment, if they can pay their bills, if they can make money, if they can grow, if they can expand, and if those downstream activities could support other people on the island. And so by starting with that brass tack arrangement, there are some necessary things that you will have to do separate and apart from whatever an overarching strategic arrangement says. One of the things that we have to be very clear about, though, is the kind of tourism that we want to pursue for the island. And I do not think that it's going to be a mass tourism strategy. A mass tourism strategy is not possible with the size of the island, the logistics, the current carrying capacity, and all of that. And I'm always very concerned about sustainability for generations beyond me. It is important that we practice a brand of tourism that allows us to make money, but continues to preserve the pristine nature of Tobago for the generations that have to come. And so we have to practice a niche tourism that attracts a different kind of visitor, a visitor who wants the kind of unspoiled, untouched, undiscovered aspect of a true Caribbean destination. That is the kind of tourism that we're going to have to pursue. And I think that that is where the agency has been seeing in terms of our analysis and our data. Those are the kinds of people who are coming to Tobago. Because if we try to compete against a Miami Strip or Tulum or any of those things, Tobago is in a different category by itself altogether.
Well, you even covered my next question, because I was just about to ask you competitively, how would we define the Tobago tourism product? And you expressed that as being, that untouched, unspoiled. Is that the brand that we're going with? Yes.
So I know that there have always been a lot of issues around the Tobago Beyond brand. And the Tobago Beyond brand is an excellent opportunity that we must not miss in terms of development. The brand was launched, but the brand was not really sold to the people of Tobago in the way that it was supposed to be sold. And so part of the actions that we are focusing on for the coming year is really to make the Tobago Beyond brand part of the local conversation by having that buy-in. It's not enough to change signage and put things up. People must understand why. People must understand how. People must buy into what the brand story is. And so there are a number of activities behind the scene that we're engaging in that would actually show up in some actions that we'll be taking later on in the year to actually work on making that Tobago brand more relevant and relatable to the Tobago population.
Excellent. And as we wrap up, you discussed that Tobago currently doesn't have the capacity to do, a broad stroke approach to its target audience. We have to be more niche, and in trying to segment who our target audience is, have we really nailed down who we're looking at? Is it the nature lovers? Is it retirees? Is it honeymooners? Is it who are we really looking at in the grand scheme of the unspoiled, untouched brand? And if so, are we then working backwards from, okay, as this individual, this profile, these are the things that we believe that this persona would want to experience while here on the island of Tobago?
One of the magical things, but something that has not been explained to the Tobago public, is the kind of work that went into building out the Tobago Beyond brand. So even though I would not have been at the agency when it was happening between 2017 and 2018, a lot of research went into the kind of persona and the kinds of people in terms of customer avatars or personas that would be interested in brand Tobago Beyond. We actually have 4 brand pillars that are exemplified by 4 different colors in our branding. So there is the orange branding, which speaks to a strategic effort at heritage and culture and events. There is the pink branding, which speaks to love and romance. There is the green branding, which speaks to eco activities, bird watching, and nature activities. And then there is the blue, which speaks to not just sea and sand, but also dive and snorkeling and water sports and so. So those pillars are the pillars that we are currently targeting. We are also working towards a 5th pillar, which would be a wellness pillar. And the wellness pillar actually dovetails with the fact that Tobago is still one of the few places in the world where the air is fresh. The air is different in Tobago.
They say
the
we
food
have
is
some of the
different
best
in
quality
Tobago.
air quality
Yes,
in the world.
the sand, not just for bathing, but the bracing waters, the rivers and all of those things. So that's a 5th pillar we are building out. So the brand story is untold. So the agency is actually positioned and has been targeting its marketing activities to those various pillars and segments. And so while a lot of it has not been very visible, we have been getting a good return on those strategic investments because, as you know, we do not have enough money and time and resources for a broad stroke approach like maybe some of the other islands.
Excellent. And I guess I couldn't even ask. I mean, you were very comprehensive in really explaining the approach that you guys are using to target tourists on the island. So I want to thank you for taking the time out to represent the agency and represent Tobago in all the work that you continue to do. And we look forward to all the new developments in tourism on the island. So again, thank you so much for giving us the time. And is there anything you want to share with Tobagonians in relation to their participation in tourism on the island before you go?
I just want to say that tourism is not just for the agency. Even as we continue to build our relationship with stakeholders, it's important that regular people on the island make themselves amenable to visitors. A lot of the visitors that are coming look just like us. They are from next door because the way visitors look have changed. And so we need to be careful that wherever we are and wherever we function in the island, that we are representing the best of what Tobago offers, because sometimes what we do is actually the first and the most lasting impression that a visitor might actually have.
Excellent. Thank you. And guys, we're going to go straight to a break and we are going to continue our conversations right after this. Again, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
People strong.